I have a sign that I take around with me quite often, and it says, I will speak to anyone about anything free. And I hole up in places and I sit there and I just talk to random people about random stuff. People find that insane. That I would want to talk to people I don't know. Because what speaking to someone you don't know is scary. It is an unknown. And we've become more and more afraid of that, and I think that is detrimental to our general well-being.
Okay, Jimmy, look, slightly different audience, but a baked-in one too. You've been around the traps on the podcast scene for a few years now. I just want to ask you, though, for people who are coming across you for the first time, well, A, what are you? What do you do? Because it's interesting, right? Like, people are watching, you might be popping up for the first time. That's happening presumably all the time for you. Do you sit back and say, I'm this, or is Jimmy Hunt just a continuum of change?
Definitely a continuum of change. I feel like my latest iteration is Wanderer. I've felt really at peace and at home with just wandering and encountering who and what I need to encounter as I go along. The proper answer that you're actually looking for and people want to know is I gave myself a made-up name, which is a mental health change maker. Simply means that what I really want to do is create change in the space of an individual's mental health.
Why do you have to make up a name like that? Where do we go in life wrong, where we've got to reinvent names that seem to be you can't live without that, for example, yet you've had to kind of create this name. You know, what's the deal there? Unpack that. Why are we in a position where there's not a million yous out there trying to support people?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's mental health advocates, for example, mental health campaigners, I mean, all of these things. But one of the things I realized early on is that there's no point actually talking about stuff unless it's creating change. And for so long, I just saw no movement in the mental health space. You know, that included the work I was doing. You know, I was doing stuff, but I wasn't seeing change. And so one of the things I did with, for example, I was a motivational speaker. And science research has shown that motivational and inspirational speakers are quite useless. They inspire people until about the car park on the way out. And so I've kind of turned into a professional ranter because the ranting the way I do it in my talks flicks switches in people. It gets them to go, oh, okay. Tries to give them epiphanies, tries to give them insights into creating their own change.
Yeah. Well, on this podcast, it has iterations. At the moment, it's, as we know, on Audiana TV. I believe it's just going up on a couple Sky TV platforms as well as being broadcast in the Pacific. So I don't say that to be like, that's a really interesting space for me, because we now have the opportunity to sit like we are in the middle of beautiful bush and just talk. And one of the things, Jimmy, that I've been trying to work out is there seems to be this historical thing of voyaging or exploring. You talked about the wandering, yet I don't see much of that being celebrated today. Okay, we might have the Instagram people, but they're still looking for the pic so that you at home en masse can get a little endorphin hit. You're, though, out there in real time doing real exploring. How much of that helps your mental health stay strong? Because you just completed a nationwide tour. You know what I mean? Like actually going out there and exploring. Could that be a higher percentage of what we're actually talking about in terms of a healthy continuum?
Yeah, well, I mean, and so when we say exploring, it's like, I barely left State Highway 1. So like, it's not exploring on a physical sense.
Yeah.
It's more exploring on an internal sense.
Okay.
Now, first of all, I will acknowledge my privilege in this, in that I am a male. But one of the things that happened along the way is that I would get people just hitting me up on Instagram saying, can I take you for lunch? Can I take you for dinner? Do you want to stay at my house? And I'm like, yes, of course. And I know that that's not an available thing for a woman traveling by herself or something like that. But for me, I get to do that. And my photographer who was with me at the time kind of freaked out about it a little bit. He's like, who are we meeting? Who are these people? What are their names? I was like, so-and-so. I was like, all right, I'm Googling them. And then you go, look, all right, they do this, they do this, they do this. I was like, yeah, I would have figured that out when I met them. But he really needed the certainty of being able to know where he is going. And I love the feeling and the effect of being able to explore without needing to know.
Yes.
And so each of these people who are complete strangers to me that I end up staying with or meeting or having just a general chat with, they all lead me somewhere new and they all teach me something. You know, quite often they're like, oh, I want to listen to what you have to say. Like, yeah, cool. I'll repeat some of the same stuff that I repeat around the place. But so often it leads to new discussions where I gain insights from them. And I find that exploring to be exciting and beautiful.
So on the bit of, let's say, certainty, you know, we're definitely, should we shout out to the photographer? You know, I don't want them sitting here thinking, hey man, I like adventure too. But there's this tension, right, that we're talking about, certainty versus uncertain. I think when I unpack that a bit, and I think about it a lot, even as much as trading in a lot for a full-time wage, right?
Yeah.
Certainty, so that I know what's coming.
Yeah.
What is it that you're doing, though? Have you said to yourself, maybe consciously, unconsciously, I'm okay with a bit of risk? Actually, that is life. That I might bump into the wrong person and that I will trust that I can, navigate my way through that?
Yeah, and I mean, I will fully admit that I have chosen a reasonable, unconventional life. And I find that that's what lights me up inside. If you made me go to a job for 10 hours a day, same job, you know, I would probably go a little crazy. If you made me live in the same house for a long period of time, I would go a little crazy. It is the uncertainty that lights me up. It's the unknown where I find potential and possibility. And so without that, I think I would lead an unfulfilled life.
I'm just going to hold on that point for a second longer, because what you just expressed, you know, one of the things I thought when I reached out to you is, how does Jimi tie into the specific thing that I'm doing? Right?
Yeah.
Because I've pivoted. I've been like...
Yes,
okay,
I'm very white. It's okay.
No, but Jimi, the way you're talking would have been how my early ancestors, and actually all our early ancestors who sought the unknown, had to go. An acceptable amount of risk, a little bit of knowledge, dealing with how far can I go? You know, you referenced it. You just said, I didn't go off far from State Highway 1. But that's a real insight that you had to make in the real time.
Yeah. Imagine not having Google Maps.
Exactly. But for most of time we didn't.
Exactly.
And so that's what I think what is interesting for me is, you know, you can go out there and do the talks, but do you think the problem is we're still seated and we're still confined in our own little whatevers, our offices,
I think that we've made a gradual shift over time to becoming more and more and more insular. I mean, you look at these houses around. We live in, you know, quarter acre or eighth of an acre, fenced off, walled in life with only the one, maybe by ourselves, or the one or two other people that inhabit that space with us, where in the past we used to live communally. So I have a sign. I have a sign that I take around with me quite often, and it says, I will speak to anyone about anything free. And I hole up in places and I sit there and I just talk to random people about random stuff. People find that insane. That I would want to talk to people I don't know. Because what speaking to someone you don't know is scary. It is an unknown. And we've become more and more afraid of that. And I think that is detrimental to our general well-being. Yeah. We should be able to talk to people in a restaurant, in the table next to us. We should be able to talk to people at the bus stop while we're waiting for the bus, or any other scenario. But now we put headphones in, we're on our screens, we do anything we can in order to insulate ourselves from the unknown and the general public around us.
We're going to do something we don't normally do, me and you. We're going to go to a little break.
Oh,
because
nice.
We're in the television realm, and I applaud you, James, for holding back the colourful language that we sometimes speak together.
Yes, I swear a lot.
But in this, you've given me the thumbs up, and I have had a bit of anxiety about muzzling you. I said, for years I've contacted you and said, let's do the podcast, and everyone said, what are you going to do with the swearing? And I said, well, look, if I tell him he can't, I'm not speaking to him.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't turn up in general, but I'm also working on that myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and thank you. So when we come back, I'd love to just dip into, there's this stat that came out that 1/3 of Pacifica don't have access to reliable internet, and they don't have access to smartphones en masse. And one of the things that I've thought about is a lot of our communication is via these two platforms, the internet and smartphone. And I wondered if you might break down the continuum of mental health, because for those people who are watching, wherever they are, how much information, I'll say that again, how cool is it that we're able to provide actual useful information, like putting a name to a feeling. So stay with us, folks. Back with Jimi Hunt, Muzzled, in just a sec. Okay, Jimi, back, still in beautiful nature. Everyone's just seen adverts, but for us, you just watched me quickly go around, check all the gear. I like the metaphorical stuff like that, because I know we can edit, we can do things, we can make things look better than they really are in life. But I try and acknowledge these moments of, we're just here. When you first sat on that chair, you fell over.
I did fall over that way.
I had a massive sweat when we started, but we do this together, right? And there's something kind of cool and beautiful about that. Jimi, like, for people who are, let's not assume everyone is anywhere. Let's assume that someone might be watching this and they're like, what the hell is he talking about with mental health? I don't even know what that really means. A, what does that really mean to you? And B, you talk about the continuum a lot. Do you think we could just spend a couple of minutes just kind of breaking that down?
Yeah, real simple. The term mental health is a bit broken. We have two states of being in our Western society, which is mentally ill or mentally well. But there's obviously a lot of grey area in between that. And when I say Mental Health Awareness Week, for example, people think Mental Illness Awareness Week. Twice on the news recently, I've seen the anchors say that the person was suffering from mental health. Right. And so the term mental health's gone a bit lost. It's moved towards the mental illness side more than the mental wellness side. And so I prefer the term mental fitness, because people understand fitness inherently. They understand their physical fitness. The more you work on your physical fitness, the fitter you get, the more benefits you get out of the back of that. The less you work on it, the more unfit you get, and the more repercussions you have because of that. And your mental state works in the exact same way. So the goal is to become mentally fitter, but we also know if you do nothing with either of those fitnesses, they slowly move backwards. And that's where our society is at. We just do nothing. We're not taught the tools. We're never taught as children how to deal with our thoughts, our feelings that create our behaviors. We're never taught how to deal with relationships or traumas. And so we don't have the tools in our toolbox to be able to stop the slide backwards. Yes. And so with fitness, you inherently understand that there is nothing you will do that will teleport you up the continuum. Nothing you can do at the gym is going to give you 30 kilograms on your bench press today. It doesn't work like that. So we need to have small, consistent increments over time in order to improve our physical fitness and our mental fitness. And so the whole point is getting people to understand that concept and then getting people to engage in that concept and start looking after themselves consistently over time.
And I guess that's where the chasm opens, right? Because there's external factors, there's internal factors, it's not a one-stop shop, which is what people love to kind of, right, this pill will fix you.
Yep.
But I like to think of it like it suppresses you. And if you're not going to work on the root cause or at least explore that, then it's just your body's telling you in other ways that it's...
Yeah, we're very good at treating symptoms and not treating causes.
That's so true. Gosh, I don't want to move on from that. Very good at treating symptoms and not treating causes. Because that sounds obvious, but it's not. It's not obvious because treating the cause, well, it requires a bit of what you're doing, I think, when you're open to meeting strangers in the unknown. You have to risk embarrassment, that it might be a bit of you.
People don't like to think they're not perfect.
Yeah.
We don't like to look at our flaws, but everyone has their own traumas. They've been through their own stuff. They've lived a life. And to think that you're special because you have is not the case. Like, we've all gone through stuff, and it affects us all in different ways. And so when you've got your anger, your frustration, your impatience, your jealousy, your envy, they are not problems. They're big flashing neon signs saying that something needs to change. In your life or in your body. They are warning signs, but they are not problems. We don't treat anger by trying to remove the anger. We go in and find out what's making you so angry. And that's the same for depression or drugs and alcohol or anything like that. The simplest example is if someone's addicted to heroin or pee or opiates or whatever, just detoxing them off that particular drug never fixes their problem. They end up relapsing. Yeah. They end up going back into the same situations with the same people because all they've done is treated the symptom of the addiction and not the cause of it.
Would it be fair to say, let's just say broad strokes, that depression is a signal to you that something's not right and it's saying change?
Of course. Depression is not a disease. Yeah. You do not catch it.
Yes.
You are not born with it. Yeah. It is a symptom of a life lived.
It's like a limp.
Yeah, it is like a limp.
Bad hip.
Yeah. It's any of those physical fitness analogies that mean that you are not you're not working optimally at the moment. There's a big difference in language when you say something like "I am depressed" versus saying something like "I currently have depression." There's a saying which is, I am, the two most powerful words in the universe, for what we say after that creates our reality. When you say, I am depressed, you are internalizing that situation and you are just becoming it. If you're like, I'm currently suffering from depression because of this, that, the other thing, that is a temporary state that we can move ourselves out of.
Right.
And that's the difference between the victim mentality and the empowerment mentality, whether you're looking to the past or moving towards the future.
So, Jimmy, just on that point, because sometimes I like it broken down, would it be like saying to someone you love, not "I love you," because that's a direct statement? Would it just be like saying to someone that you love, "I love"? And it's not, the power of the word means something. Because sometimes I think we don't really get, there's the NLP or the hypnosis, and people kind of, I think, well, it's a massive dog there. People think, it's just, whatever, words are words, don't get hurt by it. Yet we use it in other ways very powerfully. You have to tell people you love them. You can't just think that.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're saying, I am depressed, it means something because it does mean something, right?
Well, that's it. Words are very powerful, and so are thoughts. And this is the thing that we understand now through neuroscience, that when you think a thought, you're sending neurons down neural pathways. The more you send them down particular pathways, the stronger they get. The less you send them down, the weaker they get. The stronger they are, the more likely they are.
Just so you know, there's a big dog behind us, but...
I'm not worried about big dogs. Hello, big dog.
Okay.
The more you send those pathways down, the stronger they get, the more likely they are to be your default pathway. And so that's what we're looking to do, is actually rewiring our brain through neuroscience through the way we think. And so if you sit there and you say, I am love, and this is not some crazy hippie, nonsense. This is actual neuroscience. And this is a very, very radical example, but if you sat there, and meditated, I am love, I am love, I am love all week, at the end of the week, you would feel like far more love. If you sat and meditated on, I hate this, I hate that, for a week, at the end of the week, you're going to feel a lot worse than when you started. And it is literal neuroscience, which is so interesting.
And just break down meditation for me, and I know I'm not trying to get you to give me the simplified thing, but I know over the past you've told me things like, yes, you could go to a float tank, or you could put earmuffs on and cover your eyes in a quiet space. You've also told me that you could turn the music off on the way home and wind the window down. You'll feel nature. So when you talk about meditation, what does Jimi Hunt mean?
Well, I mean, there are a multitude of types of meditation that work for a multitude of people. But what we do know is that if you engage in those, they have massively positive benefits. My analogy for meditation that I'm using at the moment, I like, is that so we are in a really big maze, right? The maze is just crazy. It's a gigantic maze. Meditation is like being in the middle of the maze, taking out one of those little toy drones from your pocket and sending it up. And for the 5 minutes it's up there, you get to look over the maze, you get to understand where you are in the maze, and you're like, I need to go in that direction over there, and then there's a couple of turns there, but I need to go that way. And then you bring the drone down. It does not get you out of the maze. Meditation will not solve your problems, but what it will do is give you a perspective and understanding of your problems so that you can make better decisions towards getting yourself out of the maze. And that's what we're looking for. We're just looking for perspective and understanding, because most of us spend our lives with our blinkers on, looking so innately at the closest thing to us that we fail to be able to see the greater picture.
It's so beautiful how you did that, but it's also everything wrong with TV. I'm looking at this timer, it's got 2 minutes to go, and you're explaining meditation. I'm like, that's the problem with our world. You can't be tied into this, but anyway, we're trying.
No, but you can be. like we live in this world. I'm not saying throw away all your possessions and go wandering. I'm saying talk to the person at the bus stop. I'm not saying don't watch this on TV. I'm saying be aware of when you've got your blinkers on, and make sure you're taking them off reasonably occasionally.
I like that. Let's go to a break. Jimmy, it's like you've just dished us awesome information. I'm sure some of this is in your book. We're going to talk about your book in the next segment, Inside Out. I just had a vision of a new book for you, which is basically you in the middle of a maze and that top-down view of you trying to find your way out. I can see it.
It's the cover of my next book.
Stay with us, team. Back with Jimi Hunt in just a second. Okay, Jimmy Hunt. Look, I just want to thank you again. I always get this feeling when you visit me on the podcast that life is not easier, but it's a bit more, not meaningful, but we're making an effort to put a bit of context to something that feels very massive. You know, I have talked to you in the past about where do we sit with believing in something versus this, very logical world we seem to be in, which is illogical sometimes, but we still believe in something. I think we call it something different. We believe in an algorithm that delivers us whatever online. We believe that food will just appear when we go to the supermarket. We trust on the deepest level. It's just the things we're trusting. I think, I think I'd rather trust in something I can't explain. And I can't explain an algorithm, so I don't really know what I'm saying. But when I sit with you, it feels very human. It feels like we're talking about things that, most people who are making an effort in life will get. And I appreciate you for that. Jimmy, let's talk about your book, Inside Out. I know it's got the official statement on the back, but how do you describe it in your own words?
We're in a bit of trouble. As a society, we know this. We've seen it through countless studies, through the official statistics. We know things aren't going great. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's kind of the same as the fitness metaphors, like if you do nothing, stuff gets worse. All we have to do is put a little bit of context around it and then start making constant conscious choices to mitigate those things. A simple example is that the World Health Organization says by the year 2025, 80% of the people on this planet will suffer from a mental health condition in their lifetime. Now, that's a confronting statistic. But if I said, look, by the year 2025, 80% of people on the planet will be obese in their lifetime. And you'd go, oh, okay. Well, I understand how that's going to happen. But for me, that's not going to happen because I'm going to play rugby. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to watch YouTube videos. I'm going to hire a personal trainer. I'm going to do all of these things to make sure I'm not part of that statistic. Well, the analogy is the same for that mental health statistic. We do not have to be part of that 80% that suffers from a mental health condition in our lifetime. But if we do nothing, I suspect that'll be 90% and not even 80%. And so the idea is when you are aware of something, then you can put things in place in order to mitigate that. When you're aware of something and you want the outcome to be different, then you start making choices that are different in how you engage in society, how you learn, and you want to find as many tools as you can. And having a framework to be able to move forward from that is a very powerful way to be able to do it.
And would you say it's fair that your book will outline ways? Will you be spending time with people in book form? Because it's a journey, right? It's a journey to kind of like integrate these things in your life. Is that why it's a book? Because we can talk for hours and hours, but at the end of the day, they've got this in their hand. They can open it when they need to.
So, as I said earlier, I'm a mental health change maker. And the thing about a podcast like this, a TV show like this, is that you can't change the world in an hour. Like, no one's going to leave this and go, oh my God, I'm so much better. Thank you, Jimmy Hunt. Please blow my mind. It doesn't happen that way. The most I can ever hope to do on a podcast like this is just have a switch flick in someone's mind and go, oh, I understand something now that I didn't understand before. And now they go away and they have a plan, an outline, a framework to be able to change their life over time. And a podcast is not the most efficient way to do that. A book is a much more efficient way to do that. This first chapter in there is how to read this book. And it outlines how you should be going through a book. Not just my book, but I think in general, how you should be highlighting things, how you should be looking for treasure, how you should be looking for things that flick switch or change your life, and then how to write them down and then start applying them to your life to actually create that change. Because what we're guilty of as humans, and you're guilty of providing it, is an excess amount of knowledge. And we go around and we collect knowledge from everywhere. Some of the the smartest people on the planet are providing knowledge for everybody. We collect it, we grab it, and then we do nothing with it. Yep. It's no point knowing if you're not doing. And so my book happens to be set out in a way, I think, that helps people to collect the knowledge, but then turn it into action.
Turning it into action. Jimi, if we just take a sidestep for a minute, heavily engaging you as the mental health person, how does it feel writing a book? What did your family say? I mean, presumably, do you come from a line of authors?
No.
At what point do you sit back and say, damn, I'm doing this thing?
So this is my third book, and only at the launch of this third book did I start referring to myself as an author. Took me 3 books to become an author. Writing books is hard. It's physically hard. To sit there at a desk and type for that long and concentrate for that long. It is for me, at least. But it's a beautiful way for someone to really collate, organize, think, rethink, check, rethink their thoughts. Because if you're not an author, you don't usually do that. Usually you have a thought and you just think, this is my thought because it's my thought. Yeah. But then to actually have to go through and break down your thoughts is a powerful and cool process. I had, especially my first book, I had a massive case of imposter syndrome. Who am I to write a book? Why would anyone want to listen to my words? I got less on the second and less on the third, but it's still there. I'm like, who am I? I'm just a dude that wanders around with no qualifications, nothing, and yet I'm telling people what to do. Who am I to tell someone what to do? I'm so proud of this book, and I am so overwhelmed from the reactions that I've had so far. A woman wrote me today. She's been an addict on drugs and alcohol for 19 years, and Alcoholics Anonymous, not just me, and my book are she's 3 months sober now, and she's going strong. Like, what a beautiful thing to be able to contribute to, even if, no matter what size my thing was at. And this is the thing, is that we all feel like, who are we to say anything? And I just so highly encourage anybody anywhere to share their story, because it will resonate with some people. Yeah. And even if it only resonates with one person, what a beautiful gift to be able to give.
These things don't seem that self-obvious until you're doing it. You get a really good feeling about, like we're doing now, there's more than just content being made now. At least that's what I feel like I'm trying to enact. It's like, it's like a campfire. We get to, these are the fire, and we get to like dip into them and talk about this other thing and connect, and and also there begins a tradition out of it. Like, this is our 4th or 5th round, and we do it like once a year or every once every couple years, and that's like, if you look at the pace of the world, there's nothing in that suggests it should have any value.
Yeah.
Content is daily. Content is like, get your vlog up, show your grind and hustle. Yet we've had 6 interactions over our life, an hour, let's say, each. And it's like, man, there's something in that type of relationship too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the point, is there's something in every relationship.
That's right.
And we've got to start connecting back into those relationships, because we outsource our relationships to YouTube videos and, and podcasts. I'm not getting down on it. There's
true,
value.
though.
There's value there, but like, I mean, you asked me to come on this particular episode a couple of times, and I kind of said no a couple of times because we weren't going to do it in person.
Yeah.
You wanted to do it on Zoom, and
Yeah.
yes, there's mitigating circumstances. I live in different countries and
Yeah.
places and COVIDs and stuff. But I want our interaction to be this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is powerful. And we need to advocate for more of it.
yeah.
Not just between a podcast host and a podcast guest,
that's right.
but between two people just putting chairs in a park
Yeah.
and discussing
Yeah.
real stuff
Yeah.
that really impacts them and society at large.
100%. Okay, we'll go to the last break, and Jimmy, when we come back, I don't know, something popped in my mind. Let's dare to think about how good it gets, and dare to think about how bad it gets, because I've seen both in you over the years, which is like, man, it's going to custard.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I get this bit, which is like, oh, but there's still reason to hope, and there's that tension that I never quite know what to make of everything. So stay with us. I really do mean that. Back in just a sec. Let's start with the dark and work our way to the light, and I mean
Okay.
that metaphorically.
Yep.
I think most people have an idea of where the darkness goes, because obviously the statistics would show that many people go to a very dark space, and when there's no view to see that way out, people act accordingly, or whatever that is.
Yep.
When you're looking and trying to understand the abyss, Jimmy, is there tools you're using to make sure it doesn't suck you in? Because looking at statistics, looking at people and interacting with people who maybe aren't having such a good time in life, can it become infectious? Can you find yourself spiraling by looking at a world that seems to be through some type of lens burning?
Me personally,
Yeah.
no. And I do think the world is burning. You know that I've said we're in a lot of trouble. And yet I sit here happier today than I've ever been in my life.
I laugh because, could you break that down? It's like yin and yang. There's no
is.
shade of grey. It's just yin and yang.
It is.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, it comes down to one's own perspective and understanding. I've come to an understanding that I cannot save the world. I used to try. I used to, genuinely just want to save everybody and everything.
Yeah.
First of all, that's unrealistic. But most of all, it's unsustainable for my own person. And so what I've ended up getting into is I'm not here to save anybody. I've gone the complete opposite direction. My only job is to save myself. And interestingly, that sounds selfish. I'm only in it for me. But the definition of selfish is to put yourself first to the detriment of others. But I am not doing that. I am putting myself first for the benefit of me, but also for the benefit of others. Because as I have put myself first, as I have tried to gain more perspective and more understanding, more compassion, more empathy, more all of those good things, I have become a better human. I've been able to share what I've learned. I have been able to contribute more and more effectively, more efficiently, and better to society. We look at society as this big entity, but all it is the amalgamation of individuals and how we choose to live. And if me doing what I do, gaining perspective and understanding, can help somebody else gain some perspective and understanding, or start them on their own journey to doing their own thing, then I've made society better. And even if I only do one, that person might do 1 million. But he wouldn't have done 1 million had I not done the one.
Yeah.
And that's why we think we're insignificant. But the ability to help one person literally could change the world. And so one of the things about society is that, and individuals, is that we only change when we're in severe discomfort. When we're in discomfort, like let's say I'm sitting here and I don't have this jacket on and I'm cold, I would just harden up and I'd just brace my way through it and would do the interview. But if I'm actually in severe discomfort, then I get up and I go and get a jacket from the car. Yeah. I make a change. A few years ago, I literally said on national TV, I hope that our suicide rate triples. And everyone's like, wow, you can't say that. I'm like, yeah, I can, because right now, with our current suicide rate, we're not in enough discomfort for us to make wholesale changes as a society. COVID put us in severe discomfort and we made wholesale changes as society. We produced less greenhouse gas in the last 6 months than before the Industrial Revolution. When we're in severe discomfort, we change. And so as our society gets worse, it is going to force change. It will either hit a tipping point and we fall off the cliff. If that is the case, there is nothing I can do about it, so there's no point worrying about it. If it gets to a point where it's such severe discomfort that we all get together and go, wow, we did wait a little bit too long, but we're in a collective discomfort, let's really all work together, then we're going to come out of it infinitely better. Those are the two scenarios I see happening, because I don't see us just living a nice, comfortable life for the next few generations.
Yeah. Are you, and maybe this is slightly irrelevant, but are you pondering how much our kind of digital connection has, with our feelings, and how we might opt not to meet the person at the bus stop because now we can have these, like you said no a couple of times, because you must be feeling that there's not enough emphasis put on the human connection and the algorithm of our brains towards each other.
Is murder bad?
Yes.
Okay. So a guy goes in, mass shooting, kills 30 people. That's bad.
Yes.
Right. A guy pulls out his gun and shoots the guy killing all the people. He just murdered him. Is that bad?
So the guy kills the
guy that killed
killer.
30 people. And he saved hundreds of others.
I mean, when I'm really critically thinking about it, it feels weird to say yes, but I don't know what other thing to say.
Exactly.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
So the point is, the act itself is really good or bad. The intention behind the act is what determines its goodness or badness. The thing like social media, like screens, like communications, like TV, they are not inherently good or bad. It is only the way that they are used. And again, if we, like, a lot of people watch The Social Dilemma. And there's a little thing on there about a guy who created the like button. He did it so he could show love and appreciation to someone who posted some content. He had no idea that little kids would kill themselves because they weren't getting enough likes. The act of the like button is not inherently good or bad, but the intention behind it is very, very, very important.
So when you say, I want to catch up with you in person, are you knowing that we're easier to find a mutual intent if we're together?
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, but we can do that online, but we have to be conscious and set that intent.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, like the online stuff, it's like we're also checking our phone at the same time, we're also doing this, we're not engaged in it. And, that can lead to bad outcomes because the intention is different than if we're in this, and we have to look at each other. We can't disconnect here. We cannot look away.
Yeah.
And so the idea is to be conscious of everything you're doing, or as much as you possibly can, and then be able to make those constant conscious choices off the back of that awareness. And when you are in that mode, you start, improving your life because you're improving your situations.
Jimmy, I'm the worst interviewer for promoting your book, but
That's all right, I'm the worst author for promoting my book.
let's quickly give a few plugs to where people can find it if they would like to search for Inside Out. And
Go to jimmyhunt.com.
easy as that.
Easy as that. Go to jimmyhunt.com and we'll send it to you.
Jimmy,
The next day.
What's the next adventure for you? Where are you wandering next? Can you even plan that, or is that something you just have to feel out?
I'm just getting less and less able to plan things. My tour, I'm halfway through. I've got 2 more legs on the tour. Northland and basically this bottom of the North Island. And have I organised those talks yet? No. Are they happening in a couple of weeks? Yes. And it'll all work itself out, and the right people will turn up and the right things will happen. So yeah, like if you want to, if you're interested, follow me on social media. I make it up as I go along, and I'll tell you about it there.
That's so beautiful. Jimmy, thank you as always for taking time for me and the audience. Always good to, just talk, just connect and talk. And I hope it's going to be weird if we're like 80 and should we aim for that? I want to still
I've got
do
no
this,
problem with that.
that we find a random place to podcast. Team, I just want to quickly say before we wrap up that I'm going to try something in this podcast. I'm going to do an exclusive bit of content with Jimmy at the end. So if you want to see that, visit patreon.com/please blow my mind. I know it feels weird me selling, but look, this is all just us doing our thing, and I'm going to try and push this. So exclusive couple minutes with Jimmy coming up. If you don't want to join Patreon but you still want to see it, just email me and I'll send it to you anyway, I promise, okay? But this is just for those who, instead of buying a coffee, might come and support the podcast. Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and we will see you next time.
See ya.